Marquette's Kam Jones is the steady backup guard that NBA teams look for in the draft. This is Floor and Ceiling, let's break him down. Kam Jones is having an amazing senior season, and he's very much in the running for National Player of the Year. Right now, the Marquette guard is averaging about 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 6.5 assists per game. Jones was already scoring really well as a junior, but with Tyler Kolek and Oso Ighodaro entering the NBA, he's now also creating for others at a very steady and high rate. As of now, I view Jones as an ideal and steady combo guard whose draft range will start in the mid-20s. Let's begin with Kam Jones right at the basket. He gets into the paint and to the rim a lot, and his finishing numbers are great. As of now, Jones is finishing 69% of his shots at the basket for the season, and last year's figure of 67% was also quite reliable. Truth be told, the conversion rate between both seasons doesn't look too different, but Jones's usage has definitely changed as a senior. Last year, about 28% of his possessions were spent handling the ball in the pick and roll, but this season, that has ballooned to around 44% of his possessions. We'll dive into what that means for Jones's off-ball rolls in a bit, but there's no doubt that he's been getting to his spots with real consistency and production. My main takeaway here is how Jones wants to get to his left hand nearly every single time, and his process to do that often looks pretty similar, but with good results. Jones likes to go right to get a paint touch, and then he'll spin left into his finish. The Marquette senior does this with fluidity, but he can also get physical with a subtle bump before making his final move. Jones is also able to sometimes drive into a short post-up and then convert on a lefty hook type of shot, but I don't really think this will show up that often in the NBA. The 22-year-old definitely isn't particularly quick or even explosive, I would say, but he's efficient and he's secure with the ball. Admittedly though, I'm still a little hesitant about Jones's projection as a finisher once he hits the NBA. My main concern really is that he can get predictable. If he's looking to do the same thing almost every single time, NBA defenders and scouting reports will eventually catch on. Of course, the counter argument to this is that this has worked for Jones in college so far, but the demands of the league are just much higher. Even at Marquette, when defenders truly take away Jones's left hand, he doesn't get to his spots as easily. His process tends to be a lot more clunky, and he just doesn't create as many advantages. On that note, it's also worth touching on Jones's handle. It's very dependable in that he barely gets stripped. Obviously, that's good, but I really wish that Kam could get lower to the floor. Having that extra bit of flexibility and even creativity could help offset his lack of explosiveness and strong first step. Instead, Jones's gait on the ball is too upright for my liking, and I think it limits his takes to the rack. We can see that here in a few of these clips where Jones can't really beat his man or penetrate the defense as much as I would like. Now, let's dive into how Kam can be used off the ball when he's more of a combo guard rather than a point. Really, this is dependent on Jones's spot-up shooting, and much like his pick-and-roll usage, that has also changed from his junior to his senior season. Last year, Jones was spotting up on around 21% of his possessions. This year, that's gone down to about 13%. That's quite the drop-off in volume, but Jones's percentages were and continue to be quite good. As a junior, the Marquette prospect cashed in on 39% of his 180 catch and shoots. Now as a senior, he's shooting 40% on catch and shoot threes, but he's only taken 47 so far. My takeaway here is that Jones's spot-up volume will likely go up again once he's in the NBA, and we've already seen that he can convert those stationary shots. I wish Kam was a little bit more versatile in terms of taking movement threes and such, but I am comfortable with where he's at overall, and he should fit in nicely next to another high-touch playmaker. On the other hand, I don't see too much in Jones as a pull-up shooter. He's 7 for 27 on his jumpers off the dribble this year, and he was better last season at around 40%. That's a good number, but it came on just 23 makes. To Kam's credit, all of those made shots last season were off the dribble threes, so that's encouraging to an extent. But honestly, I prefer him taking the shots that he's best at, which tend to come at the basket or being set up by others on the perimeter. Of course, it's worth highlighting here that Jones doesn't take mid-range jumpers. Some might see this as a good thing. From a numbers standpoint, this isn't a shot that most players should take unless they're very good at it. In the NBA in general, these looks are also gradually going away for most players, but I actually prefer for prospects to be able to operate and be comfortable in the mid-range. Sometimes in a playoff game or a playoff type game against a set defense, that's the only shot you can get. Kam Jones' playmaking leap this season has been remarkable. He's more than doubled his assist rate while also managing to cut down on his turnovers, which were already very low. Jones went from about 2.5 assists per game last year to 6.5 this year as of this upload. Contextually, this comes as a byproduct of his increased reps as Marquette's lead playmaker without Kolek or Iguodaro on the team, like I mentioned earlier. Last season, the team needed Jones to score. Now, they need him to score and pass, and he's lived up to the task. The numbers are definitely elite, and they're real, but I think that a closer look at the tape shows that Jones is more so a safe and very dependable passer rather than some sort of playmaking wizard. This is not a slight, but it's important to keep in mind. For instance, Jones is really good at running these pick and pop looks. He draws 2 men to the ball, and then he's timely and accurate kicking it back to the perimeter. Both now and going forward, I like when Kam plays with a big who can stretch the floor, and in general, he's pretty good at creating threes for his teammates. Looking ahead though, I'm wondering about Jones's work in the pick and roll in addition to the pick and pops that we've already seen. Right now, I think that this is largely personnel based since Kam plays with Ben Gold a lot and Gold isn't much of an above the rim threat. So let's see once he makes the NBA if he can be as accurate or even as synergetic with a different type of big. I'll also touch on Jones's turnovers here real quick, and the main thing to know is that they're really low. Jones's turnover rate last year was around 11%, and it's gone down to about 10% this season. That's impressive considering how much more he's handling the ball, but it also says to me that Kam doesn't really try too many home run passes. In fact, I'd actually like to see him get a bit more audacious sometimes, but again, this also goes back to some of the limitations we touched on earlier with Jones's handle and athleticism. Broadly, I feel fine about Kam Jones on defense, and my evaluation of him on this side of the floor is actually pretty straightforward. Jones's positional size to guard the 1 and the 2 is fine. He's around 6'5", maybe a bit smaller once he measures at the draft combine, but that's alright either way. I'm also feeling solid about Jones's frame. He's above 200 pounds now, and he has 4 years of college basketball behind him. So those are obviously good reps, and given how much Jones plays, he clearly holds his own on defense. Kam's engagement level and activity, particularly off the ball, are sturdy. He's not really a defensive playmaker, but he's a disciplined defender, helping in the paint, calling out rotations, executing his closeouts, contesting without fouling, and so on. For Marquette, or just college in general, I don't think there's much worth nitpicking about. The effort is good, the tape looks fine, the numbers are okay, and Jones doesn't make any glaring mistakes. Instead, it's more so about the context for me, especially this year. Jones is Marquette's offensive engine to such an extent that he's not really asked to do too much on defense, logically, outside of executing the scheme and staying solid. In turn though, that means that once he's drafted, Kam's defensive responsibilities are almost a lock to go up, so that will be the bigger test and question mark. Jones's on-ball defense is more of a mixed bag for me. To be clear, the effort and the intent to execute is still there, but I think that Jones's athletic profile can cause some limitations. This has largely been okay in college, but once he gets to the NBA, the guards are much stronger, faster, and more skilled. Like I said, Jones's frame and size is fine, but just that, and then his first step and explosiveness as well as his twitch is kinda lacking. Right now, Jones is averaging 1.7 steals per game as a senior. That's a good number, but most of these come when he's helping off his man. I don't think he'll get to do this quite as much in the NBA, where his role will probably be narrowed down quite a bit, at least at first. So really, I kind of think that his defensive outcome is predicated on the type of role that Jones eventually plays, largely on offense. In my opinion, there are three broad possibilities here. The first one, and the toughest, is that he one day returns to a focal role like his current one at Marquette. This, for example, happened with Andrew Nembhard on the Pacers. Jones could also be more of a spark plug scorer or situational starter, something like Malik Monk or Lonnie Walker. That would see him play more like his junior year at Marquette. Or finally, Jones can be a reliable backup guard who scores first, but also passes the ball, similar to maybe like Deuce McBride, although Deuce had definitely shown a lot more on defense. As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a comment telling me what you make of Kam Jones, and if you enjoy this type of content, make sure to subscribe to the Floor and Ceiling Substack as well as the channel. Take care, and I'll catch you guys next time.